All righty, we are good. Sorry, it takes just a second there with this to load up, but all right. Hey, everybody, this is Blake Bryson and Brent Bryson here in the Executive LOI group. Excited to be with y'all tonight on this fine Monday evening. Let's see here. Let me get this pulled up. It looks like, yeah, we're live. We're good in the group and everything. So tonight we have a kind of special opportunity. So Brent, my dad here, is with us, and he actually just got back from Thailand. And for those that don't know, Brent has I don't know the best word to use, but a really big organization in Southeast Asia. And a lot of it is focused in Thailand. So every now and again, once every 2 years, or it used to be about once a year, but right now it's about once every 2 years, he'll still go over there, meet with his team, and do trainings all day, every day for about 7 days. So he was getting a lot of information together and a lot of presentations together. And one of them that he did, he actually shared with us at Team Elite University this weekend. And I thought that it would be a great opportunity for those in the group that didn't get a chance to come to Team Elite University to jump on here and see it with our executive LOI group. So some of the main reasons that I wanted to have Brent do this again, even though he just did it, was it gives you a lot of unique talking points. So we do these business presentations every week on Wednesday in the Nu Skin social media training group and on Zoom. And they're always a little bit different. They always kind of have the person's unique flair. But what Brent's done here is he's created a whole kind of personalized 5-point presentation for him and for his story. So while you're watching, I hope that you'll take notes, and I hope that you'll pay attention first and foremost. But I hope that you'll take notes on a couple of things that are key things that you maybe didn't know or maybe hadn't thought of sharing with people when you're sharing the presentation or when you're sharing the business with other people. So with that, Brent, for those of you that are newer on the call or may not have seen him speak before, he's a $20 million earner with Nu Skin. He's been a Team Elite for 20 years. There's very few people that you'd want to pay more attention to in your Nu Skin business than Brent. He knows what he's talking about. He's gone the distance. He's built the business through multiple different growth periods. And this is kind of, I believe, this presentation is kind of a culmination of all that he's learned over the last 30 years with Nu Skin and 20 years at the top of the compensation plan. So with that, Brent, I'm just going to pass it over to you and let you kind of go through your slides and go through your presentation and kind of wow us.
Yeah, thanks, Blake. As you kind of introduced that, it's really true. There's a lot of information associated with Nu Skin, and at some level, at all levels, really, it's important that you internalize that story. And so, when you prepare for a trip like that, where you're the show, you're the keynote, and they had me on stage for 4.5 hours, it's a big stretch. It's certainly not what I do every day. Show up in good, I call them money clothes, where I actually have to wear long clothes or, long pants and a nice shirt and a sport coat and kind of be the guy. And so it really made me think, how do I internalize some of these concepts? And that's where this presentation came from. And so, with that introduction, I'll just kind of roll through these slides and tell you what I was thinking as I developed them. And we'll get this PowerPoint rolling here. I think it's really important for people to know who you are and what your why is. And maybe that's the most important subject. Really, at the end of the day, what you end up with is your story and the Nu Skin story, and you're writing your story. But your story has brought you here. There's some benefit that's interesting to you that fits your why. And it's really, really important to share that. And ultimately, my family and time with my family is my why, and being able to do what I want to do with my family and when I want to do it. And, that freedom is really my why. And so I kind of always start with my family. And it's been fun.
Real quick, just so you know, it's actually showing us your other screen. So it's showing us like the two slides together.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Just so you know.
I'm not sure how to fix that, to be honest.
So drag the, I'm trying to think. I can't think of how to do it from where I'm sitting.
Drag it to the other let's see. I know what I
Yeah.
need. I got it. I just
Yeah.
need to stop sharing, stop PowerPoint for a second here.
Yeah.
Gosh, I had such nice flow going
I
too.
know. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
It's okay. Let's try it this way. And then, oh, somehow I've got to share that screen. Got to get back in there. Okay, I'm thinking that we fixed it. Did we fix it?
let's see. Yep. There you go.
Okay, good. So it's been a really fun, year and a half, I guess, now that I've been working with Blake. And of course, these are my grandkids. And so that's become a big why. We were just out tonight for Virginia's birthday, and it's really fun to be able to have hang time with your grandkids. And so, those slides are interesting because Blake shares them. Those are his most popular posts in social media last year, and I'm sure that he's shared some of the reasons why, but people really do want to know about you. They want to know about your why, your story, and then they want the Nu Skin story too. So, this was a fun adventure to be able to go on success trips with Blake and Kalani and their team. Excited about that. Just closing in on another qualification period, and on January 3rd, we'll find out where the next big trip is. And I understand it's a big bucket list trip. Like South Africa was a big bucket list trip. This is another really cool place like that. So we'll be interested to know on January 3rd what that is. And it'd be fun to be there. My before story was, well, this slide's got knocked out of kilter somehow, but I owned 9 Subway sandwich franchises here in Utah, and it sounds, it kind of sounds like the American dream, and that'd be a lot of flexibility and income. But the truth of it was that business owned me. It was a 7 a.m. to 10 o'clock every day. Everything we planned, every family vacation or every outing we planned got interrupted by some kind of a labor issue. I make a lot of jokes about having 100 teenage employees, but I can tell you that it's not lifestyle. It's certainly not quality of life. And regardless, if I'd have continued to own those stores and maybe even expanded that footprint, my life wouldn't be different than it was in 1989. It would be exactly the same. And I think that's true of a lot of financial vehicles. So my before life had no time. It had okay income. It had a lot of debt, a lot of landlords, a lot of bank loans, a lot of leases, a lot of things that are the absolute opposite of freedom. And my life today is very, very different than that. And I realized that, if I was going to start over, the goal was to find a place to start over, once and just, build something that I could build on and build on. And that's probably the big thing about Nu Skin is we're going to be here. Nu Skin's so stable and there's so much opportunity, and we're really in the big picture still so small that you really just got to ask yourself, do you want to keep starting over? Maybe that's a traditional business, maybe that's an employment situation. But one of the things that makes it so people don't create wealth in their lives is that they continuously start over. I think that the recent statistic I saw is that the average 50-year-old in the American economy has started 7 jobs since they left college. I think that's kind of an old statistic. It's probably more like 9 times now. And, it's just rough to go start over. And I didn't want that. That was one of my big whys. So I wanted to know that the intention of the founders of the company was to go the distance. People that do start over, these are the real statistics. You track 100 people to age 65. What do you get? And this is in the US. This slide's a little bit old, but it hasn't changed. It's the exact same stuff. 16 don't make it to 65. 66 of those 100 people survive on $30,000 a year or less income. Think about that. 13 have income over $30,000 a year. That's a year. And income, so that's income between 60,000 and 30,000. just five people. So you have a 95% chance of being dead or dead broke at age 65 in the US today. Just five have $60,000 a year of income that they can rely on. Really tough. You know, you think about trying to live on $5,000 a month. I know there's probably people listening that probably sounds pretty good too. But man, I got to tell you, that's a pretty meager existence. And one is wealthy. So, you know, if you really want to end up in that 1%, the 1% gets such a bad rap. You know, you look at the media and they just get beat up. But the truth is, they just know things that everybody else doesn't know. Some, I understand, have more opportunities. Some are born into opportunity. But you know, some inherit or whatever, but it's a tiny, tiny fraction. These slides are about people who create wealth. So you look at how they've done that. 10% are CEOs of public corporations or top executives. 10% are top professionals. That would be lawyers, doctors, accountants, etc. 5% are super salespeople. 1% of the 1% are entertainers and athletes. 74% are business owners, something they just don't teach in any school really, is owning a business, but it is your statistical best chance to become one part of the 1% is owning a business. And really that's what this is about, Blake, is how do you understand the business product, you know, the business offering that Nu Skin has. This is not talking about, you know, social selling or using the product or even part-time. This is talking about actually turning a Nu Skin business into a permanent income vehicle that you can really rely on, that you don't have to start over, that has a life of its own, really, that becomes, in my life today, is a reactive life. You know, there's not a lot of proactive energy that goes into my business. Most of it's reactive, and I'm grateful for that. You know, because in some ways I'm 60 years old, and the energy is not the same, the attitude's not the same, the desire's not the same, and it's super important that by the time you get in your, you know, down the road a little bit, that you've got a vehicle that you can keep building on and be kind of reactive with. Yeah, I put some proactive energy in, but that's a super important part. So why? And you know, I learned these three things from a billionaire friend of mine that's a golf friend of mine. He's a billionaire. He sold his company for $3.5 billion 14 years ago. You know, incredible guy, really smart guy. He spends his time investing money now, and money and time. I would argue time is equally important. And these are his, he uses these to evaluate things that he invests money in. And I sat there and listened one day to him talking to a friend about this. And I thought, man, that is our business in a nutshell. You know, you've got to have some form of capital. Most people are capital. In other words, you go get an education and then you go to work for somebody else. They rent that education and they bill it out at a higher cost. So you are their capital. You're their capital employee. They're your employer. So when people, average people, part of the 95%, see the word capital, they think of money. That's not true. It's some kind of asset. You know, it's a factory, it's a system, it's a piece of equipment, it's an employee. Some way to employ capital to your benefit you must have to create wealth. The second piece is, and so when he looks at investing money in something, he's always looking, what's their trademark, what's their patent, what's their unique business system, what do they do better than somebody else? Why would my money want to be there? And you have to look at this business the same way. Why would my energy, why would my time want to be there? And then the second piece is, what's the lever? What's the channel? You know, how is it going to be distributed into the world? You know, is it retail? Is it social selling? Is it social media driven? Is it infomercial driven? Is it, you know, how is the message going to get out? Where's the leverage to be able to, replicate that capital, so to speak. A good example of this, Blake, could be being a basketball player and not being on TV. The lever for basketball talent is the leverage is the media. It's the TV. Without the TV, it doesn't matter how good you are. You could be Michael Jordan, and if you're not on TV, nobody knows, so nobody cares. It doesn't even matter, right? You understand? Yeah. So the third piece of the equation is scale. How does it scale? Well, in the case of the Jordan example, the scale is everybody's television set. If everybody didn't have a television set, then it could broadcast into the air. And it's the old proverb: if a tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear it? So it's not just the media of TV, it's the lever of everybody having one, right? So how does that apply to Nu Skin? Well, first, we just got to talk about some trends. The first thing is we live in a very changing world. People are looking to have a business, and they don't really have a lot of money to go and invest. In my case, I had to borrow the money for Subway, but you can answer these questions for wherever you live. It's the chances you're not living in Utah, you're living somewhere else listening to this. Are there more people competing for less jobs? Is technology replacing people? Yeah, Walmart just hired all the robot janitors, right? Fired all their janitors. Longer hours, less money. Families require multiple incomes. There's no job security. Nobody believes they can go to work for one company and work there for 40 years and live happily ever after. I feel stupid even talking about that. In my day, that was the exchange. You'd go get an capital education. You'd go to work for IBM. You'd work there for 40 years, get a gold watch, pension, walk away and live happily ever after. That world is gone. And to even talk about it is silly because it doesn't even exist anymore, And so people are looking for alternatives. They're looking for things that they own. The biggest trend of our time is social media today. And, it just gives us this unbelievable megaphone to shout our message into. It's not so much the social selling, that is a factor, but it's being able to zoom this message all over the place and not be in an airplane for 31 hours, which is what I did to get to Thailand. Actually, because I had a big layover, it's more like 24. So you think about over and back, it's an entire week of flying, 40-hour work week of flying, where there's probably going to be people that are in this group that are in Thailand and Australia and other places that are going to pick this up and see this. We live in an amazing time where we can use technology to literally, as a lever to get our message out there. So this tiny little device, this tiny little cell phone has really dramatically changed the world and will continue to do so. You're less connected today than you will be tomorrow. You're the least connected that you'll ever be in your life today. You're only going to get more and more connected to technologies like this. And that benefits our business. We have figured out how to get in the economic way, something that other social selling type, companies are trying to figure out. How do you get your customer to tell the story? And that's what we do. We use the Lumi, we use the Galvanic, whatever. We use my favorite product, right here. I double up on this stuff because it's just so powerful. On youth, it's called Youth Span, or it's called something else in other markets. Anyway, blanking on that.
Lifespan.
Yeah. So, being able to tell that story is the story, really. It's a huge trend. So, other factors of the business, there's you can go be an employee. You can, you're not going to have any money or time if you do that as an exchange. You can be retired or a student. The challenge with that, of course, you got a lot of time, no money. So all you really get to do is feed the pigeons. an old joke, but it's kind of true. All you can afford is pigeon food. So you can go down to the park every day and feed the pigeons, but that's about all you can do. um, the traditional business where I came from, the franchises, you have no time. The money's okay. If you're a professional, you think about doctors, lawyers, accountants, if they aren't billing, they aren't earning. And so they go on vacation and they're a nervous wreck if you've ever been around them. So a business system where it works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year and produces income, then you have money and time. Now, that's not necessarily going to happen right away. And I've kind of belabored this point. This is the point I just made. If you're paid by the hour, the job, the contract, the patient, the procedure, the client, the salary, you have to be there. Your income depends on you. You have zero leverage. You stop working, you stop getting paid. So, how do you choose a business system? Well, you need those trends. Those trends we just talked about are the wind. Then you need some kind of products. You need something that you're going to move into the marketplace. If you don't have the capital to do that, then you've got to borrow the capital. Okay, so that's what we do with Nu Skin. So we've got this company that has these certain factors that we're going to talk about. So you kind of need a partner. You need a compensation plan that's proven, that is going to actually pay you for your efforts. And then you need some kind of timing. And I would tell you that just this technology is the biggest factor of timing for sure. And it falls on this really rich backdrop where people are looking. And the more you describe this and the better you get at describing this, the more likely people are to become interested. So what are the factors of the business, the perfect business? Well, no set schedule, no risk, no employees, no bookkeeping. Pays you more than you're worth. Not at first. We'll talk about that. No receivables. That's the biggest one. All the guys that I know that own businesses and girls that I know, the number one hardest thing is not being in business. It's trying to get somebody to pay you for your services. Actually getting paid for the work that you do is the trickiest part of business today. So, this is the perfect business. You work with who you want, where you want, when you want. You work where you want. You work when you want. You work as much as you want. I mean, that's the side, right? I love this quote from Blake Roney. Nu Skin's not a get rich quick scheme, but it's a work hard scheme. And I appreciate that. I can work as much as I want. When I was early in the business, gosh, I was a 20-hour-a-day guy. I stole every minute I could from my Subway business so that I could get out of the Subway business. And I was a workaholic, and I admit it. Blake, you were in that house. I was an animal, right? For a lot of years. But now I live like nobody in my circle of influence. The free time I have is just stupid. And it's because I built a global distribution channel. And that is the opportunity here, you guys. I mean, if you really look at what you're doing is building your own distribution channel. Think McDonald's, think Wendy's, think Radio Shack, think Walmart in a small way. It's kind of micro franchising, if you would, basically. And the more you talk about this, the more you empower people, executives, to own their own business, the bigger that lever becomes. So one way to think about it is, if say you have 100 distributors and they all work an hour a day, that'd be 100 hours of benefit. But in our model, you could have 100 executive distributors that have 100 distributors and benefit from 10,000 hours a day. And that's hard to compete with. And that's the part that people don't get. That's the part when you tell your story, Blake, and you talk about how all of your friends wondered what I did, because I drive a Range Rover and play a lot of golf, and they all wondered what I do. Well, they just they're living in a world where 95% of them are vehicles that they're going to be dead or dead broke, and they don't understand that lever. And so when they come up against somebody that has this, that they've built, it's not even a competition. If they're working in a 40-hour, 50-hour, 60-hour profession like a doctor, they just can't even compete. Their income's just not even, it's not even in the same league because they haven't got the lever. They don't have the leverage, right? So, the company's the perfect partner in this. This is a better environment to talk about this than standing in the Nu Skin building. It always makes me nervous because really the company got the short end of this deal. Yeah, it's a big company and they're public and they do just fine and pay their employees. But you look at all the things they do for us, and we go buy condos and new cars and go on golf trips, and instead of sitting at the business doing all the paperwork associated with it, we got the good side of this deal by a long ways, right? And so, we have the perfect partner. They have products with integrity. They ship them on time. They pay us on time. They pay us with integrity. They never embarrass us. They invest in the future. Um, they just, they keep winning awards, global record revenue. You can go into NUS and see the 35-year track record and all these awards. And Forbes calls us one of the top 100 most trustworthy companies, and et cetera. That's all capital. We're borrowing their capital reputation. And so you think about that formula that we started with, capital leverage scale. This is all borrowed capital. It's hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure, people to answer phones, people to take care of lost orders, whatever, any little thing that comes along, Nu Skin's got covered. And while they're taking care of that, while they're hunting down a lost order, you and I are out having pizza with grandma for birthday. It's just a better deal, right? And they've got these people there that care about us, and we should thank them as regular as we can. And on this call, we're executives and qualifying executives. And once we become an executive, every one of us has an account manager. Amy Baker is mine. I know you know yours. Every year I get her a Christmas gift. She works really hard. She's like a personal assistant. I don't pay her. I don't pay her health benefits, but I love her, because I know she cares about my business. So that's borrowed capital also. We borrow capital in the form of all these products. Every time I see these products, I think about, how hard it was in Subway just to like print advertising, let alone have a product, and the packaging and the liability and the just the formulation and government regulations and all the things that they do for us is all borrowed capital. All we have to do is use the product, have a good experience, and tell people about it, and we get in the economics of it. It kills me, Blake, when I see people that are in my organization, in my Nu Skin organization, that obviously just don't get it. They buy products from competing companies, from stores. They go to Estee Lauder, Lancome Clinique, Chanel, somewhere like that, and they buy a product, and then they tell their friends how good it is. I think, what are you doing? You're not in the economic fray of that. You're not in the waves of that. What are you thinking? And it's such a simple model. We used to always say, use the cream and sell the dream. In today's world, maybe you could say, maybe it's 3 steps. Maybe it's use the cream, post about the cream, and sell the dream, right? But it's still a super simple business. And I just every time I see this footprint of products, or what they call the portfolio, I'm just so grateful that I'm not down there trying to figure out how to print a label on it, right? And in the meantime, we have the only multi-billion-dollar brand in direct selling. This is a multi-billion-dollar brand. So whenever you see the ageLOC logo, you know that there's a genetic component. In other words, we're talking about epigenetics. We're talking about being able to reverse a gene, the way that a gene expresses itself, and we can make that claim. We can make a claim that that product makes the gene express itself in a younger way. That's a pretty strong claim. So, these science assets are what give us the opportunity to do that. It's literally hundreds of millions of dollars of science assets that are capital that we borrow, and it gives us the opportunity to replace myth with science in the form of the bioscanner. We're the only ones, the only company in the world that can tell you whether a supplement's working. Now, yeah, there's other ways to do this, blood and urine, but not certainly not very palatable and not as accurate. So the bioscanner is pretty interesting. It's certainly a lever point. We get tons of media about these products. Most recently, the Lumi has won this Global Beauty Award. This is a little bit older version of these slides. I realized that it was probably sitting on my desktop, and everybody should be grateful for that because I'd added some slides. But those, we've kind of passed through the company where we're borrowing their capital, we're borrowing their capital reputation, we're borrowing their media footprint, and we're putting ourselves in the economic way by telling people about the product. We're using the cream, we're posting about the cream, and we're selling the business side of that. And this is the way we get compensated for that. And this is a different discussion. We won't do this, but the basic building block is you are putting someone in their own business when they actually become an executive distributor. Really, until you're an executive distributor, you're really just a product user, and you can buy products at wholesale, sell them at retail, but you can't really start to express any kind of leverage in your life. So you kind of need to become an executive. This is how this works. There's a qualification period. And this is what makes Nu Skin's compensation plan so unique, is understanding the difference between a level and a generation. This is a big industry now, and there's a lot of different ways to compensate distributors. This is better. And the reason being is because that whole footprint right there is a generation. And that I just did is the key to understanding why Nu Skin is so much better than the other stuff. When you start looking at other stuff, they count levels. They don't count generations. There's only 3 or 4 big companies, the ones that have produced lots of volume: Amway, Shaklee, Herbalife. Those are the breakaway plans in Nu Skin. Those plans pay distributors way better. Like, it's not close. If you start counting just individuals, there's 4 levels right there. Well, you'd be done at level 6. This is just one generation. And that's one family. We pay on 6 generations. So we hold this, I call it a volume footprint. It's bigger than what other companies pay. So it gives you more leverage. It's global and seamless. So, as you start building your business, and maybe you come in here and you've lived somewhere else, you speak a language, man, you should start talking to those people. And you should have the intention of building a business that never sleeps, that goes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because Nu Skin does all of the calculations. They have a whole floor of that building that literally does capital conversion every month and pays you in whatever dollars your country is. The timing as a company, we're relatively small. The biggest company in our space did $19 billion last year. We did, we're going to do about 3, just a little over 3 this year. The company's intention is to grow to 10 billion. When they do that, they'll pay $4 billion in annual commissions. That's an unbelievable number. It doesn't take a whole lot of that. Total revenue, you think about maybe, pulling off I don't know, some kind of footprint that, maybe it's $6 million a year, $500,000 a month. I mean, that's what, Blake, 300 grand a year, that's going to be there whether you work or whether you don't. I mean, it's just, it's a remarkable opportunity to be as well positioned from a timing point of view with a company that's relatively small and going to be really, really big. That's a great opportunity. So where does the scale come from? This is the last slide. And So we've got borrowed capital, tons of it. You can see it. It's capital infrastructure, capital employees, capital products. We've got we've got leverage in the form of income where we can leverage ourselves through independent distributors, through helping people become executives, and we can do that on multiple generations. And then the last way is, how do you do that? How do you scale it? How do you teach it? Well, I think you've got to have some kind of system. And in this case, we have a very proven system that we call System 7. And it's, you're never going to agree exactly what to do. But if you look at really successful distributors over a long period of time, they all taught their teams basically three things: some kind of daily work pattern, okay, what we call workflow, or I'm sorry, some, we call it core habits, some kind of daily, pattern. And it's a little different than what this slide is. And you guys have refined that a little bit for the social media world. And then some set of skills that you keep working on. I keep working on these things. I work on goal setting. I work on how I work on my list, how I invite, how I present, how I get people started, teamwork. That's the skills. And then in the center, what events do you run to keep it alive in your mind, and to have people scale up, I call it, or get the belief that they need to really continue to work for yourselves. And the great thing about a system of duplication like this is you just don't waste as much time. There's less ego involved. It's not about big personalities. I've probably been accused of being some kind of motivational speaker 1,000 times. I'm not. That's not what I do. I just execute a business system that I know works anywhere in the world. And I just do that over and over and over again. This slide gives me a lot of peace because this is the learned part of the business. And I know I can teach it because it's learned. And that's it, Blake. I mean, we probably went a little longer than usual. And but there you go. There it is.
No, I think that was great. I don't think that it was too long. I think that it's great content, and I think that everyone should probably watch it and watch it again. I mean, if you can't watch that and think of a few things and think of a few people that need to hear that, then you're probably not paying attention. So, my invitation to everyone that was on live here tonight would be to tag some of your team members, tag maybe 5 to 10 people that have been people that are in your group that have either qualified in the past or have been executives in the past, or have LOI'd in the past and fallen out of qualification. There's a ton of opportunity to make it back to executive and to be a part of this massive wave of growth that's coming here with Nu Skin. So I hope that those that were on took notes. I hope that it was beneficial for you and that you paid attention. And I hope that you'll all make it to Team Elite University next month in January so that you can hear Brent and others. We've actually, Nick, myself, Brent, Kyla, Kalani, and others in the group are in a planning group that talks about the Team Elite University for next month. And hearing things like this from Brent live, hearing them on stage, hearing them with 500 plus people in the room, there's a different energy that comes with that. And when you're sitting there, you're really going to wish that other people from your team were sitting there with you. So my invitation from tonight would be to take a couple of those key things that you learned tonight, think of a few people that you can share that with, and just go to them and say, I recently learned that, that Nu Skin's going to add $7 billion of growth over the next 5 to 7 years. They're going to be paying out $500 million a year in commissions in addition to what they're already paying out. Think of things like that and say, just kind of go and get someone's interest and get them in front of the information, and you're going to be surprised what happens. So, Brent, I don't think it was too long. I think it was great. I think it was good information, and I hope that people will tag their team so they can jump on later. I know that people have different commitments and things at this time, so they may not have made it live, but I hope that they'll stick it out through the end. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end this, and we'll let you guys get back to the rest of your night, and hope that you all have a great rest of your night.